And we're live. Welcome everybody here to this live episode of the Lakers Lounge, coming on the heels of what the fuck did we just watch?
I don't.
I'm joined here, obviously, you guys. His name is not Anthony O's Dennison.
That is my legal name. I'm changing it actually.
Watching you guys, those of you watching live, Harrison has his display name as Anthony O's Dennison Apology. Look, there's going to be a lot of Dennis talk. There's going to be a lot of D'Angelo Russell, Austin Reeves talk. Both of those guys looked like the moment was too big for them. Hell, I think the moment looked like it was too big for LeBron in some moments. You see like some of the passes that he was throwing, some of the turnovers that he was committing. There was a lot going on in this one. I want to start here. We will kind of narrow down the conversation over the course of the show. I want to start macro and kind of narrow down as we go along. Coming off of that win, there's no way people can be confident heading into the Memphis series, right? It's just like no way whatsoever, right?
Anthony, I thought that I was going to die multiple times during that game. My head hurt. I tasted blood. I thought that I thought you must have announced that I was coming on the show, given that I was, starting to feel like I was physically going to fall ill and pass away in the middle of this game. And you were going to have to come on people and here and tell people, just be like, yeah, the Lakers literally killed Harrison. And now, the Anthony Irwin announces a guest curse strikes again. And then I would assume, continue to announce guests and see what worse things can continue to befall them after you hit Pete with his first ever migraine and killed me. But yeah, I don't want to say that it necessarily makes me feel like all that much less confident because, I was texting with someone before this game and they're like, there's no way the Lakers lose, right? I'm like, I just saw this team almost lose to the Jazz twice in the last week. This team can lose to anyone on any given night. And so while I think they definitely have a chance against the Grizzlies, and I think that them finding a way to pull this game out, despite D'Angelo Russell looking like he did not know how to play basketball, and like Austin Reeves playing maybe the worst game of his career, and Anthony Davis having like multiple kind of, stretches where he was gone. LeBron apparently just thinking that like you don't have to play defense and playing games, I guess, for most of, the first 48 minutes. And they still, despite all of that, overcame themselves and managed to win. Like, if they're able to just basically, rather than shoot themselves in the foot, like they chopped off both of their feet and then continued to try and play through it. Like if they could do that, they could beat anyone. So yeah, I'm weirdly more confident. I don't know if it's just the adrenaline.
This is somehow worse than Pete coming on the show and claiming like standing for his boss.
Anthony, look, you can look behind me. Dr. Dennis heals all. He diagnosed the problems in the Timberwolves defense, and boy, did he surgically attack them. But yeah, I mean, LeBron passed the game like he drank passed during this game like he drank Lobos at halftime. It was like, that was just one of the worst passing professional basketball games I've ever seen from both sides. I don't even think it was defense. It was just truly atrocious passing by both teams.
I legitimately, look, not great to say this, seeing as I make a living speaking. I have no idea what to say about that game. None whatsoever, because like you're saying that the Lakers overcame themselves and all of that stuff, but the Wolves were playing.
Look at how terrible they played, and they still won.
But they were playing against a team without Rudy Gobert, without Jalen McDaniels, without Naz Reid.
I think it was
Anthony Edwards played the worst game of his career.
Yeah,
huh?
Yeah. I think they have Jaden McDaniels. Right?
Yeah. I'll just never forget Jalen McDaniels.
Yeah.
Jalen, like he will. I still believe. No, that was KJ.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
but
no,
like,
Jalen McDaniels is on the Sixers, I believe.
Yeah. But like, I just, yeah, you're right, Harrison. Like the Lakers played about as poorly as they could and won in spite of themselves. But you could have said the same about the Wolves. Had they won this game, like they won in spite of their, huge offseason acquisition, punching a teammate in the chest and not being available for the game.
They won because of that. Was a selfless play by Rudy Gobert. He knew he was going to get played off the floor against the Lakers, and so he punched a teammate to make sure that could not happen.
No, I actually think Kyle Anderson called him a bitch so that he would get punched. Knowing
another
that
heady play by Kyle Anderson. This dude's basketball IQ just knows he is playing four-dimensional basketball IQ chess.
Yeah, I walk away from this and I headed in. Maybe this is my fault. Because I headed into the play-in and the playoffs with actual optimism. Like I actually think that, I actually thought that, hey, this team has looked really good when they've had all their guys together. They have shooting that you need. They have size. They have athleticism, like all of these things. And I headed into all of this optimistically. My bad. I'm sorry. Like, if you were stretched out in the case of Kyle Anderson, but like if you were stressed out watching this game, that is my bad. I apologize profusely for putting you through that experience.
I'll let Mia know, because I think she may have been worse off watching this game than I am. I'm thanking God that she was not at work for this one.
I was watching this game. I agreed to do Keith over at Fast Break Breakfast, playback channel. I agreed to do the entirety of the game, and I just, they got down by, I think 15, maybe a little more than that, and the money line on the Lakers jumped up to 215. The money line on that one, according to some of the people in the comments, jumped up to 215, and I said, bet it now. This is when you bet that, right? And lo and behold, like obviously the money line winds up paying out or whatever. It just felt like one of those stupid games that the Lakers do just enough to win, and approaching a play-in game with the stakes attached to it in that way. I'm not saying that was like their approach. Like they headed into this, like, anticipating we're going to do just enough to get by. But if you were watching, that's certainly what it looked like. Right. And you look at the casuality of the, turnovers that like LeBron was having. He had that one skip. When have you ever seen LeBron throw a skip pass as bad as he did, where it just lands in the middle of the defense?
Honestly, the one that was may have been his worst pass of the game, that was that just absolute heat check lob to AD that actually worked. Like, it still somehow, against all odds, got there. So maybe I should be giving him credit, but I think it was more just only AD could have went up and made sure that he got that and secured the ball in the middle of like 17 defenders approximately. But
I actually
that was
understood the thought process there, though. On that pass, I understood the thought process. He saw, I'm guessing he saw Cat there.
Yeah, he saw Cat near him. He's like, here's a ball of yarn. Go get it. Run into AD.
This dumb motherfucker can't help himself. He's going to commit a foul. Like, let's just like see what he does. Like, I actually understood that one. But he had that one.
The funniest part of the game, bar none. I'm sorry, you brought up the Cat foul thing, and so I just have to say, like, was the fix is in the third quarter when Karl Anthony Towns, a player who in every single meaningful game of his career has managed to
almost fouls out or does foul out
the dumbest fouls you have ever seen a professional basketball player commit, fully grabs AD by the shoulder and basically almost shoves him to the ground, and everybody's like, oh man, whistle's coming out. Refs.
No, my favorite was the one he committed on Vanderbilt, where like he's driving to the basket, and he like even turns his shoulders and just go poof. Like, he just gives like an actual just like full on jab, and he would have two-pieced him if he didn't have a ball in his left hand. Like, it was just
that's a bad example by Rudy Gobert. You got to chalk that up to the poor veteran leadership. He's out here trying to punch people.
He threw a better punch on that play than Gobert threw to a guy who had his hands down.
Yeah.
Vanderbilt was like, it looked like those karate moves where somebody like punches the Adam's apple here and shoves it back into the guy's throat, and he kills the bad guy that way. Like, he just, and really caught him. And again, like, the part of it that was hilarious to me was he does that and then holds his hands up like, how could you call that?
Do you think he changes his voice with the refs too, like he does in interviews?
Yeah, no, I think he changes it by the huddle, right? Like, if like
he's just method acting his way through the NBA, just playing different characters. He's like, I'm bad boy cat tonight. I'm gonna punch people.
Everybody needs to. I apologize for my coughing, everybody. I just talked for 3 straight hours.
Well, the game almost killed you, so it's fine.
There's that, but yeah, they go into a huddle where everybody needs to calm down, and he sounds like Barry White. when everybody's like needs to be amped up, his voice raises like 5 octaves, and I don't know. I want to get back to the main point though here. Like, I know you're saying that basically that you have more confidence coming off of this game, and I know you explained it, but I need you to do it again because I have none whatsoever coming off of this.
Anthony, I understand why you would feel that way. I understand why people in the chat would feel that way. I understand because I felt that way for probably, like, I don't know, approximately 48 to 50 minutes of this game where the outcome was somewhat in doubt. But, just thinking about it afterwards,
somewhat
talking it out with you.
Harrison, they were down by like
somewhat in doubt. That's how much confidence I had. It was a little in doubt there. It got a little dicey. They survived an overtime game that only went to overtime because their best defensive player, a guy who would have been a defensive player of the year candidate if he hadn't missed like 25 games or however many it was he missed, fouled one of the other team's best 3-point shooters on a 3 as the clock was expiring. And they won that game.
Can we also be honest? Like, that was a terrible call, right?
Yeah, I mean, hey, the fix was in. The refs had it out for the Lakers. Okay, the NBA...
I thought the LeBron call was terrible. Like, I thought the loose ball that he actually touched ball first on was a terrible call.
Fix was in.
I thought that, and like,
here come the whistles. Big market mini. Alex Rodriguez. He, there, connect some dots. Okay.
They had, like, I know the stat that's pretty loud right now that's kind of making the rounds is that the Lakers over some odd amount of time shot 17 free throws to the Wolves 3.
Yeah.
To close the game. But if anybody was watching the shots that the Wolves were taking, like, it was a lot of 3-pointers. It was a lot of floaters. It was
a lot of 3-pointers that the Lakers were freely giving up.
At the bit, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know, but that's Ham's defense, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's I don't know. I know that people are always going to immediately jump to,
yeah,
this is rigged. The league wants the Lakers in it, and I get it. Like,
I get it too.
It has been very well reported what Donaghy did, right? So there is no coming back from that. Once that is out there, that is immediately going to jump to non-Lakers fans, the forefront of their minds, and I get it. Like, that's
and I get it too. But these are people that were watching the game, like they
right,
saw
but
what
that's
was
the
happening.
part. Like, that's the part of it that I felt like it was very much confirmation bias. Where every single foul that was called for the Lakers was like, that's it.
And like,
it's
I'm not going
to
say that the Lakers, I think every single foul that they got was like an actual foul, whatever. Like, just like I'm not going to say that the refs got every single call right on the other end. Like, there's human error in this, and that stuff happens. It's not some grand conspiracy.
Although that bald white ref, my dude, we aren't there. We aren't here to watch you call moving screen calls. Like,
hey,
there was that stupid travel call that was on AD. Like, just shut up.
The
like,
refs
that's not what you're here for.
The refs could not decide. I saw Jason Maples point this out, and it was a good point. Like, they couldn't decide if they were letting guys play or if they were going to call everything. And they changed it seemingly from minute to minute of the game. They're like, okay, it's the 42nd minute. Now we're calling everything. Moving screens.
Well, but this is a problem. Like, you see this a lot in high school basketball back when I was coaching. And Maples, I think, I would imagine, like, can actually speak to this too, right? With his experience in coaching too. you'll have in a game in high school basketball, it's 2 referees, right? And you'll have one referee who sees the game a certain way, and you'll have another referee who sees the game a completely different way. They've never interacted before this game, and they will therefore call the game very differently. And I really honestly think, like I made this point on the broadcast with Keith, like I really honestly think as a kind of foundational problem with NBA refereeing is that you have older referees who see the game a certain way, and you have these younger referees who see the game a certain way. And I think it's really coming like to a head in the middle of these games where you have certain referees like that. I think Troy something is his name. That was the blonde, the bald referee, the white bald referee in this one sees the game a certain way, and the other referees in this one don't see it that way. And then you add on top of that, like, you know, a lot of attention over the course of this season has been paid to certain referees, getting promoted for certain games and for the playoffs and the grading scale that goes there.
Yeah.
Right. And if that's how, or as that is actually how this works, then you're more inclined to call it by the letter of the law because you were technically making the right call. And that isn't necessarily always in the entertainment's best interest, right? Yeah. And I think in this one, like the AD travel call, I'm sorry. I've seen NBA players do exactly that over the entirety of my life. And you don't make that call there. You just don't. I think it was in the fourth quarter was when they made that call. And I don't want to make all of this about the referees. The point of this conversation is to say, like, we shouldn't be talking about the referees after a game like that. It was fucking ugly. It was hideous. It was gross. It was stuck in the mud. Neither team was able to score, whatever. But in its own weird way, like a really bad action movie, it was entertaining.
Yeah.
And that should be the focus of this. Not everybody galaxy braiding themselves into believing what they wanted to believe on their way into this game. I think it's really kind of disappointing that that's where people land on off of this game when I think there's a lot to take from it in terms of just raw basketball.
I just don't understand why, if you think that this is rigged, why are you still watching? Well,
people watch WWE.
Yeah, true. I guess so. You're right. And I guess, to take it back to your example, action movies, are
You mean to tell me that like at a time where Marvel movies and Star Wars prequels are are some of the most watched content out there, that people don't stop at something with an intended ending on it?
Yeah.
All right, let's start kind of narrowing it down here then. And I'd be remiss. I feel like we have to start with Schroeder.
With the Lakers' best player tonight, the $84 million man?
I mean, look, I am a meme. Thanks to you on this one. So I'm just going to get out of the way. I want you to sing his praises here. I think he played incredibly well, and in a spot where the Lakers absolutely desperately needed him to. Probably played through some pain too en route to this. So I'm just going to get out of the way and let you sing for your boy. That's tough.
I mean, that game, that was tough in every sense of the word. He was tough. Fire emoji, 100 emoji. Okay. He was, all over the place. Dennis, you could tell he was up for this game from kind of the second he checked in. He was ball pressuring. He was doing Dennis stuff. Like, the moment did not look too big for him, where you started to see, again, like we've given Austin Reeves a lot of praise this year, and this was probably the worst basketball game I've ever seen him play, especially when you factor in the circumstances. Yeah. Like, he was really bad tonight, started to look scared down the stretch, like didn't look like he wanted to shoot at all, and went to the rim a couple times. Like, he wasn't completely listless, and he had a couple moments and he made some plays, but this was a bad game for Austin. And
you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of earlier this season when, and I apologize that I'm comparing him to these guys, but he does have some of this in his game. But remember at the beginning of the season when Trae Young, when James Harden, when
It was
Damian
last
Lillard,
season.
was it last season?
Yeah, it was last season when they cracked down on the grifting and
Yeah.
everybody got mad. Yeah.
And those guys, like, they looked like they were short circuiting.
Yeah.
And they just had, like, they had no idea how to play basketball because they weren't getting certain calls anymore. There was a play at the very beginning of the game that was only a game ago, only a few days ago, a call and an and one opportunity, but it wasn't called. And I saw Austin kind of like stop and say, "Oh,
Yeah.
that's weird." And I really kind of think like that was the start of it, and then I think it really kind of snowballed from there.
And like to his credit, he's not a completely, unethical foul grifter. Like he still tries to get the shots up on the rim. That I think he was up there in the league and ones this year for that reason. Like he is trying to play basketball and happens to get fouled and hit a lot. And anyone who kind of says otherwise hasn't been watching him that closely. But I also thought that the Wolves were well coached in terms of, knowing that sort of thing was coming and trying to play physically without fouling on him, and knowing that he was going to be sort of getting into the chest, looking for that contact, the little kind of crafty stuff. It looked like they had him scouted pretty well. And so that is maybe a concern going forward in the playoffs. I thought D'Lo was just terrible. Like, I don't even know if it was necessarily, I mean, you would think the Wolves know his strengths and weaknesses pretty well, but, his passing was awful. Defense, obviously, you're not expecting to get a whole lot, but I think the best defensive play he's made, in a Laker uniform is still blocking you. And that nothing tonight changed that. Yeah. So I think like with and the reason I bring those guys up is when those two guys are that terrible, like the Lakers don't win this game without Dennis stepping up as much as he did. Normally Dennis is a luxury. Tonight, him playing like he did was an absolute necessity for them having a chance in this game. His defense was incredible. He went down with that ankle sprain. I have in the Silver Screen and Roll chorus, thing that an article, Dennis leaves game out for rest of game versus Wolves, because I was starting to write up like Dennis is not going to come back. I didn't think he was coming back.
He asked to come out, and I was like, if he's asking to come out,
he was
that
limping.
Usually doesn't go well.
Yeah. And so again, to quote Dennis Schroeder, shout out German doctors. He, in addition to everything else that he did, he healed his own ankle using his German doctoral powers. Probably gave a medical update on LeBron to the coaching staff and everyone else, like if they happen to ask, just because that's Dennis's thing. And then he went out there and balled out in the second half. He hit the biggest shot of the game, bar none, to put them up 3 before AD's, kind of maybe possibly foul on Mike Conley at the end, whatever. He hit that shot that would have been the game winner if not for one of the dumbest fouls in that situation I think I've ever seen. And then
I think it was a bad call, but more than anything, that was
AD
just
shouldn't have put himself in that position. Like
he's
got to be better than that too. And so, to put himself in the position where it even was possible to make that call, or to make that mistake, if you think it was. And then Dennis would continue to be great in overtime. Just all Dennis stuff, knifing into the paint, hitting timely shots, setting up teammates, making hustle plays. He was great tonight. And I don't expect him to play this well every single game of the playoff run, but in a winner go home scenario, especially after how he looked in so many playoff games against the Suns a couple years ago when you and I were on this podcast, or I remember I did one with Sabrina after, I think it was after the final game of that series. And I was just like, yeah, I'm done with Dennis. I'm kind of done with the Dennis experience. And, I don't know if it's 1.5 years of seeing what the post Dennis Lakers looked like with the direction they decided to go, or, whatever. But, he was incredible tonight. And I think he has become an easy punching bag for the fan base. And, really haters like you, especially, to, blame and point the finger anytime stuff goes wrong. He is on a veterans minimum contract, and he just won the Lakers a winner go home game. He has, by every single possible metric, outperformed his, contract status and where he should be on this team. And the Lakers are lucky to have him as a luxury.
All right.
I don't think he's perfect, but he was incredible tonight. He was arguably their best player tonight.
The one thing I'll always say about Schroeder, and the reason the Lakers had interest in him this season from the get-go, was his performance for Germany. Was it in the Olympics?
Yeah.
Or FIBA?
It's FIBA, I think. Yeah, it was FIBA. No
I think it
Olympics
was
last
FIBA.
summer. Yeah.
And like he does not shy away from the moment generally, right? Like I do think I think last season he ended the season without taking a shot. Eurobasket, thank you, Sabrina. She's just so much better at this than us.
Our voluntary fact checker. We got to bring her on too.
But like he earned himself this opportunity in Eurobasket by not shying away ever from this kind of stuff, right? And I think in this one, it would be very easy for a role player on a veteran's minimum contract to look around at, like, I almost picture, like literal shell shock at not literal, but figurative shell shock.
I mean, given the sound some of their shots were making on the rim and backboard tonight, look.
But like
AD probably can't hear out of his left ear after being battling on the backboards tonight.
You could actually see in especially Reeves and D'Angelo Russell's face, like, whoa, this is very different from the last few weeks, right? And I think it'd be very easy for a role player to look at that and say, like, yeesh, I guess I'll sink into that concern or anxiety too. But no, like he just kind of he almost used it as a rallying cry for himself. Like, all right, you guys don't have it, fuck it, let's go. And I really think that takes what you see in him sometimes is overconfidence, and in this case, that overconfidence really kind of served him. I also like, the thing that I really like about Dennis is, like, people are going to look at some of the 3-pointers that he was taking, and obviously the 3 that should have won the game if not for AD's blunder, but just like constantly applying pressure in one way or another. Defensively, like constantly being in whoever he's guarding's face. Offensively, cutting when he doesn't have the ball, and always just kind of being up to something. And I think there's real value in that. And in a game that gets so stuck in the mud like this one did, I think that really came in handy. Where especially, if he gives the ball up to AD, or if he gives the ball up to LeBron and he cuts, there's so much attention paid to those guys that he's going to be open, whether it's going to be for his layup or to lead to a different kick out. And I think in this one, being able to do that kind of stuff was huge, because the Lakers were otherwise so stuck because LeBron wasn't creating advantages. AD was clearly afraid to get, I think, to the free throw line in some spots. And
late,
just getting
especially.
What's that? Yeah.
Late,
yeah,
especially.
absolutely. And just getting something going was really what Dennis brought to this thing. And you're absolutely right. They don't win this one without him. Let's talk about AD.
Sorry, no, we can't talk about AD yet, because I have to note something. And this is my role on the podcast, is to be your ethics ombudsman. I got to hold you accountable, because listeners, I know they, like me, when they're listening to the podcast, sometimes hear you make these proclamations and you don't issue corrections when you're wrong. And so, as sort of your ethics, committee, your ethics ombudsman, your podbudsman, because we're friends. I have to note, number one, that I respect.
Podbudsman is actually a really good podcast name.
I think that actually should be my title on the podcast moving forward. The Podbudsman. Because I'm your bud. I hold you accountable with fact checks. I'm on the pod. It works.
Former editor.
So when we were, first of all, I appreciate you, like Dennis, gritting through it, because I could tell that praise for him that you were just doing was physically making you almost cough a lung. And so your body was rejecting what was coming out of your mouth the whole time you were talking. And it was sort of incredible. And I also have to, I have to out you. Earlier this season in Black, you put something in along the lines of, how many games do the Lakers win if they just straight up, how many more games do the Lakers win if they just straight up don't sign Dennis, so they hand him as a security blanket? And I would like you to, all your listeners, Yeah, I think it's time. You got to issue a formal apology to Dennis. I want to hear you verbally fill out the apology form on the air.
All right, Dennis. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I
That's
will.
what the people want to hear.
No qualifications, nothing like that. The Lakers. I do
But
think
that's why you're still married. No qualification. Don't add any. You're sorry.
I think the Lakers, if they lose this game, Harrison, they would be facing, I guess, the winner of, who is it? Pelicans.
Thunder Pelicans. Yeah.
I don't know how that goes. To be completely
I mean, they
honest.
would be in a single elimination game 2 days from now if it were not for Dennis.
And that extra game, by the way,
not only did they get several days off to rest before playing on Sunday against the Grizzlies, but we don't have to watch this team until Sunday against the Grizzlies, which is maybe the greatest gift they gave us.
But like, honestly, going into that game, let's say they lose this one, you honestly would you have any confidence in that game?
No, of course not.
None.
Did you watch this team tonight?
Of course not. Right. That's what I'm saying. So well, this is part of my apology to Dennis Schroeder is like, if you don't do that in that spot, and if you don't bring those things to the table that did make the Lakers at one point interested in giving you $84 million, American dollars, this season could, would be 48 minutes from being over.
Yes.
So shouts to Dennis.
Yeah.
Is that good?
Thank you. Yes, that was much better. I expect that to be the clip that you post on social media tomorrow.
You want me to do that?
Yeah, I think you have to post the Dennis apology. I think it's time.
All right.
The people want it.
Let's talk about AD.
Okay.
This is interesting because statistically, offensively, not a great game. I thought he really kind of shied away from the moment in the last stretches of the game offensively. 24 points, though, 15 rebounds, 9 of them being offensive, 4 assists, 2 steals, 3 blocks. It was like, and a +9 on the night, the only starter with a positive plus-minus.
God.
Like,
what a weird game.
That's what I mean. So, like, how are you, like, all of the information I provided to you, and also given what you watched from him over the course of a game, thoroughly outplayed by Karl Anthony Towns, his counterpart in this game. Like, what do you take away from him in this one? The free throws really concern me, but I'll build on that here in a bit.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on the free throw concerns, and him being worried about potentially making
only
those shots.
Free throw shots tonight.
Yeah, and so that's something that is certainly worth monitoring going forward. The fact that he had 24 and 15, and what did you say, like 6 blocks?
24, 15, 9 offensive rebounds, which is fucking insane.
I mean, some of those I think were basically passes, but. The way the Lakers were shooting, he was like Dennis Rodman on the boards tonight. He was treating everyone as a possible miss.
He was just like playing volleyball.
Yeah.
All right. So he had 4 assists, 2 steals, 3 blocks, though.
Yeah. I mean, 2 steals, 3 blocks. Like, he was impactful defensively, even beyond sort of those counting stats. And I thought he was good tonight. I actually did not realize he scored 24 points. That's more than I would have guessed. I would have thought like around 15, just based on.
That's how I felt about LeBron throughout much of the game too.
No, LeBron was scoring. LeBron just wasn't defending, for the most part. And so, like, there were multiple times where LeBron went on like a 7-0 run by himself. So I would have guessed 30s for him. He was a big part. We're barely going to touch on him because he's LeBron, but incredible offensive night from him. Obviously, the defensive end left a lot to be desired.
Defense was offensive.
Yeah. But I thought AD overall was. Like, I think, again, the stuff, I get why fans him, I get why trade AD and what WTF AD, I think was the other one trending. There were like 2 of those topics were trending on Twitter. I get it. He has some moments, not Karl Anthony Towns-esque, but he has some moments where you're questioning, like, what is going on? You are the largest person on the court, the most skilled person on the court. Like, what are you doing? Like, he impacts the game in so many different ways. And him tonight really does speak to something where, again, not even his best night, but he's so impactful defensively in terms of being able to, affect shots at the rim. Really, the only rim deterrent the Lakers have. I thought kind of him some credit. I didn't think he maybe had his best game of the season tonight, I think we can say. Especially using that challenge so early. I guess it prevented like a third foul, but that would be nice to have. Conley 3.
I think that was a foul he used to avoid. Oh no. Oh, was it on AD?
Yeah, it was on AD. It was on AD, not Vando. At first, I thought it was on Vando, and I was like, "Why? What? Yeah. Why are you doing this?" But It was on AD, so defensible. Whatever. Hindsight's 20/20 on that stuff. I thought
AD finished with 3 fouls, though. By the way.
Yeah, I thought the best adjustment that Ham made tonight, though, was going completely away from Wenyen, I believe, in the second half, and going to the center, for those kind of reserve. I thought that really helped keep the Lakers in the game. But AD, again, he's the only guy with size and defense. I know like some fans want Bamba more. I really do not think he would have been any sort of answer in this matchup. Timberwolves were going so small. He's not the type of guy that can take advantage of that on offense, and he's just going to get killed defensively when you're that spread out. And so, especially coming off of an ankle injury where he looked kind of like the first game back. And so, again, the Lakers don't win this game in the spirit of the Dennis stuff. They don't win this game without AD and all of the contributions that he did provide, even if, again, like not a great game by his standards. He potentially almost lost them that with the, just putting himself in a position to get the foul called on Mike Conley and, with some of his tentativeness.
So AD is always this fascinating test case in how little we know about defense, right? Yeah. Like AD is like it basketball is the only sport, the only major sport. I guess hockey fills this too, but it's although hockey's kind of, well, I guess it's growing. We'll say basketball, though, of the big 3 sports, as I know them to be, it's the only one where you see the whole playing field in front of you or the whole court in front of you while you're watching it. And yet there is so much stuff that we miss because there is always so much focus on where the ball is and what and what the person with the ball is trying to do, what the team with the ball is trying to do, and we tend to forget the impact of a great defensive player on those things, even if it doesn't show up in the box score. And that's one of my least favorite basketball cliches because, like, most of this stuff actually does show up in the box score, right? How a team shoots at the rim is indicative of a really good center, right? Attempts
or just
at
not
the rim.
Shooting at the rim sometimes can be indicative of really good center.
Right, like the number of attempts that they shoot in that game compared to the like season average and stuff. And I don't have the Wolves season average in front of me, and I think it was always going to be on the lower end because I thought their only path to winning this one was getting up as many threes as possible and playing the variance game.
Yeah.
But I still you have in this case somebody who just swallows up the paint. And I've compared it to, and I'm older than most people, I guess, especially people who are interested in watching YouTube at 1:00 my time. But I do really think he reminds me of Deion Sanders, who would just shot, or Richard Sherman back with the Seattle Seahawks, and in their ability to just shut off the water to a whole side of the field, right? You just do not throw to their side. And yeah, like with Sherman, there started to be some of the I guess criticism at the even in his prime of like, well, he's not really facing the other team's best player. He's more focused. They're more using him in a zone over there, whatever. But like when you shrink a playing field, it is always inherently going to make things significantly harder on an offense to perform. And with AD, when he has it going defensively, he just swallows up the paint. Like there's just like nothing is done comfortably in the paint. And there were a few times tonight where Mike Conley, I was again recording with Keith, who has been watching Conley over the course of his career. I have been watching Mike Conley for years now, and he would get into the paint usually, and he would throw that right-handed floater up, and there were times where that shot was open, but he felt AD there and just didn't do it, right? He would force a pass somewhere, and maybe that gets deflected, or that opportunity passes, and it's hard to find another opportunity like that in the middle of a 24-second shot clock. Like, AD, I know that, like, he can be frustrating, and trust me, watching him play offensively tonight, where he was reluctant to get to the rim because I don't think he wanted to shoot free throws, is really frustrating. But
you guys should see the tweets about AD that Anthony doesn't send.
Right, the stuff I send to you personally, but like,
yes,
but still, his defense, you know, in a game where the scoring after overtime, the Lakers won scoring only 108 points. Like, that defense really fucking matters in a game like this one. And it you know, it was already mucked up, and I think it was mucked up because of circumstance. You know, again, we talked about D'Angelo Russell being terrible, Austin Reeves being terrible. Anthony Edwards had, again, the worst game of his career when you consider the stakes attached to it. And like, that is going to muck it up too. But, you know, what I think the Wolves were trying to do was, especially when Russell and Reeves were in the game, attack those guys, get into the paint, and kick out the shooters. But even those kind of forays into the key were made more uncomfortable by the fact that AD was there. And I think that's why that, combined with, like, just how bad Wenyen was like why you see the +9 compared to the rest of the other starters there. So I think that was a big factor. And you mentioned Ham, like, unless you have anything else on AD.
I was just going to say, it's funny that you made a football analogy, because the comparison that I was going to make was a lot of times, like, he was in the paint, like that one tall wide receiver in a Hail Mary kind of scrum on, like, a last second play where he was just trying to tap the ball out, trying to get it. Like, he knew that they just did not have very much going offensively tonight, and how critical those offensive rebounds were, and is like on the defensive end too. And also, just, you know, we aren't going to do a whole segment on him, but shout out to Rui too, because I thought that he looked ready for the moment. He looked ready for postseason play. He, you know, had some good sequences defensively on Cat. Didn't look terrified like some of the other Lakers role players did. And, you know, also was huge on the glass in addition to AD. But yeah, go ahead and make your point on Ham.
I wrote about Rui heading into the postseason, and shouts to him for making me look smarter than I actually am. But
yeah, he's been great lately, and he looked, you know, again, ready for the moment tonight. It was good to see.
Yeah. All right. I do think we need to talk a little bit about Ham, because he plays. I lost my mind when we were 2 minutes into the second quarter, and the Lakers had already played 10 guys. And at some point, this rotation needs to get whittled down. It has to. Like, this is the postseason. And what makes me really nervous is this was the criticism of his mentor, right? Bud sucks at this, or sucked. Even still, there are some criticisms made.
Well, Bucks fans certainly still have their criticisms of Bud's rotations and minutes and all that.
Yeah. And to see him, like, over the course of the last couple weeks, you know, I've been waiting. When's he going to whittle it down? Like, when are we going to start seeing something closer to a postseason rotation? And we never saw it, right? And I thought, well, maybe he's playing it close to the vest or whatever, but still, like, at some point you are going to have to whittle this down. And then you watch in this game where, you know, potentially your season is on the line, because I don't think they lose this game and then win the next one. I would go that far.
I think it's possible, but I wouldn't have felt that great about it if they had lost this game, given you know, the circumstances.
Like, whoever they faced would come in with momentum. Minnesota came in with no momentum whatsoever. But yeah, like, you see him play 10 guys early into like, by the time we get to the second quarter, and I'm just sitting here saying, like, Troy Brown clearly didn't have it, you know? Like, the first time Troy Brown held the ball, he did some behind the back kind of move to try to get himself open and barely, you know, grazed the front of the rim. Malik Beasley didn't shoot his first 3-pointer, and that's the whole point of having a Malik Beasley, is to shoot 3-pointers. He didn't shoot his first one, I think, until like the third quarter, if not. And so like I'm watching this rookie head coach, and I don't want to just kind of narrow him down into just that. But again, he's a rookie head coach. Like, this is the stuff that like it takes some learning, and I just don't think the Lakers have enough time for him to be on that learning curve. How nervous should I be about Ham here moving forward? Do you think he learns from this game, or do you think he looks at it like, hey, we won, we're going to keep on rolling this thing again?
So I think we're already seeing some of that process. Wenyen only played 2 minutes tonight, so I think he pretty quickly realized, like, okay, that's not working. We're tightening up the rotation. So that's one. I mean, they played a 10-man rotation technically tonight, but really it was like a 9-man rotation. We also saw Beasley's minutes had been dwindling for a while now, just based off eye test. I haven't looked at his box score numbers, but it does seem like his minutes and the faith in him is going down unless he starts to hit some shots. And I thought he was
shots.
Yeah, I thought he was useful during that third quarter when they went sort of the 5 out with LeBron at center look. And I thought that, he drew some attention. He hit that 3. So, he wasn't completely useless tonight. And I haven't been the biggest Beasley fan, but he had like a couple moments, but we're seeing his minutes start to get cut. Again, I think that we're going to start to see more of that kind of stuff. Again, Troy Brown only played 17 minutes. Like, Rui got 27, but, he deserved it. And so I think we're seeing some of those adjustments start to happen. But of course, you should be concerned. This has been a thing all year. And so, even down the stretch when these games were kind of as close to must win as regular season games can be already.
Yeah.
And so, them going into a series, of course, you should be a little worried about him continuing to do stuff like that and sort of feel it out and have, sort of his rookie kind of coach foibles. The thing that I think you and I have talked about this before, but Ham, he has positive qualities. I think the fact, and Pete talked about this as well, just like keeping this whole team bought in for the entire year, given how much was going on, given how much was at stake, how much pressure there was, how much kind of madness was going on, and how much losing. Like, keeping this team bought in and continuing to play is a genuine testament to his kind of charisma and ability to lead a locker room. But the in-game adjustment stuff and the rotations and things like that, like, there's been complaints about that all year. So of course there's probably going to continue to be complaints, and you're going to continue to feel that way during the postseason. I don't think he's magically going to turn into, like Tibbs from a rotation perspective and just go with 6 guys, in the series against the Grizzlies.
Yeah. Well, like so I agree with you and I don't.
Not that I'm saying you're asking for Tibbs. I don't think you're actually asking him to try and kill the players on the team by going to a 6-man rotation.
Like Tibbs is interesting because he uses a playoff rotation in the regular season, and you just can't do that over the course of a 82-game season. But like eventually he does land on a playoff rotation. The other knock on Tibbs is that he doesn't allow, like, once he has his mind made up on what his rotation is, he doesn't really allow new players into it, right? And that closed-mindedness, like, really does eventually come back to bite him. So, like, you're right. I don't want Ham to turn into Tibbs in any real regard.
And those aren't the only 2 options. I think you want a 7-8-man rotation, something like that. Like, I think maybe I doubt that that's how they start things against Memphis. I think they're going to feel that matchup out, as most teams do, sort of start with a looser rotation and then sort of tighten it up as the series goes on. They figure out which sort of are a better matchup and which ones they're going to hunt. But yeah, I think they're probably going to go 10 deep against Memphis, at least, to start with.
See, I just don't.
I get why you're frustrated. I think that's how things are going to go. So if you're concerned about that, then yeah, I think you should be concerned.
I think the book is out on Beasley. I think we know how that's going to go.
And Memphis now with like basically almost a week to scout and see how things have been going with him. Like, he's not going to be getting those reputation guards right now.
Yeah. Which maybe gets him more open and gets him more opportunity, whatever. Yeah. And maybe like later, like midway through the series, if the Lakers are kind of struggling to get shots up, like then you bring him in and you try to do that, whatever. But yeah, like I agree with you in as it pertains to just this game, and I don't, because yeah, you're right. Like, you look at the final minutes totals. AD plays 43 minutes. LeBron plays 45 minutes. Reeves plays 39. Rui played 27. You say Troy Brown Jr. only played 17. Beasley 14. Schroeder plays 33. D'Angelo Russell, who, like, credit to Ham, did bench his starting point
Yeah.
guard.
Yep.
Although
almost
he
for
benched
the
him,
entire fourth quarter, I think, until that final couple, like last possession where he put him in for shooting.
although like I think he's been waiting for this the whole time that he's had Russell, because, like, we know he loves Schroeder, man. Like,
Fair enough. I mean, Dennis gave him good reason to tonight. Dennis earned it was nepotism. Dennis earned the nepotism. Okay.
You're right, absolutely. But, like, I do kind of think, like, he saw Russell just kind of meandering. He was like, "Woo! All right, let's go." All right.
It's Dennis, baby. No, I mean, it's like, did Avery this week earn her adorable guest spot on the podcast through merit? Like, absolutely. There are plenty of podcasters that are qualified to come in and sit in your lap about donuts. But, Avery, she got that opportunity in her limited role. And I think that's sort of an analogy for that was Dennis and Darvin tonight. He was Papa watching Dennis kill it in his when needed.
I'm trying to think of, like, podcasters who would want to sit in my lap.
Yeah, fair enough. We may have to get them a separate chair. Like, we may have to work out for that in the Lakers Lounge budget. Get that for you, or get your off your taxes. We can maybe get them a second. We'll look.
And I'm sorry, like, outside of maybe Raj, there isn't a single podcaster as cute as Avery, like, on the mic. Like, there just isn't. Like, Raj talking about movies is adorable, but even
you adopting Raj is the content that your new 24-year-old son that moves in with you, and you just teach him about life.
But yeah, I don't know. Like, looking just at the minutes totals, they look about right, But I do kind of think, like, he was really slow to move off of Beasley. He was really slow to move off of Brown. And, like, the numbers are also inflated, right? AD would have played fewer than 40 minutes if this game doesn't go to overtime. LeBron does wind up playing 40 minutes if it doesn't go to overtime. Reeves plays 35, which, at some point, like, somebody was going to have to play out of Russell and Reeves. And I understand him going to Reeves with Schroeder being able to play as the point guard there. So I get that.
I think that I was looking at Reeves's minutes total and I was like, oh, that seems a little high. And then I looked at the other guys and I'm like, never mind. I think that was okay.
Yeah, right. You're right. You're right about Gabriel. That, like, it was 2 minutes of that, and it's like, this isn't happening.
Foul capped like 7 times in 2 possessions, and
it's also just like another really bad matchup for Gabriel. And by the way, like, I think most of these matchups are going to be really. Maybe Memphis.
The Grizzlies might actually be small enough now, given some of their injuries, that he could play against them.
Maybe. I know, like, if they ever face Denver, that's a terrible matchup for him.
Him versus Thomas Bryant, training camp battles. Let's go.
Yeah, right. I don't think Thomas Bryant would play in that series.
Probably not.
But yeah, I think some of like the final totals here wind up being okay because of overtime. But, like, if not for overtime, Rui only plays 22 minutes, and he was a plus 20 on the night.
Yeah.
And I need Ham to be more quick to respond to the way that the game is going. And also, and I know this is tough because this is not how he wants to coach. Like, Pete and I talked about it on the lounge the other day. Ham wants to play small. Like, yes. Like, on the perimeter, he wants to be small, he wants to be skilled, and he wants to be, like, the size on the court. He wants that to be LeBron and AD. And I get it to a certain extent, but, like, that isn't playoff basketball. Like, as we get further and further into the series, these teams are going to get bigger. Like, these teams are going to get more physical. The games are going to get more physical. And, like, I thought, I thought what we kind of saw from Austin in this one was discomfort with that physicality.
For
He's
sure.
not ready for that yet. He's in his second year. It would be asinine to hope that he would be ready for it. And I do kind of think, like, I'm not sitting here calling for Reeves to necessarily give all of his minutes up to Rui or whatever, but I think like either maybe even and Vanderbilt and or Rui have to get, at least 25 minutes apiece, because that's the kind of physicality that these games call for, especially Rui. Like, the knock on Vanderbilt is that teams just don't care when he has the ball. But that isn't the case with Rui. And he does bring a lot of that physicality to the game that Vanderbilt might be able to, or is able to. And I do really kind of think that, as we get further and further into these playoffs, hopefully that, Ham is going to have to rethink his approach to the identity he prefers for this team, move off of that and move towards the identity that this team is actually kind of screaming at him about.
Yeah, the Vanderbilt thing is tough because I agree with most of the concerns that you mentioned, but they can't defend well enough for the most part, especially on these kind of like wing scorers without
they need
him
against Jaw. No, they like, he's their best option against Jaw.
Yeah, so it's this, if you could combine him and Rui into a single player, like that's the type of guy that would get the contract that Rui's agent was asking for at the beginning of the season from the Wizards. Yeah. But unfortunately they can't, and they got to figure out a way to go, because like Vando was rough offensively tonight, and the Wolves, again, they had a lot of familiarity with him and the holes in his game, and they coached like it and they game planned like it, and so we'll see how much Memphis takes from that and sort of how the Lakers have to adjust going forward.
Yeah. All right, let's spend the last like 5-10 minutes before we, are able to fall asleep and wake up and look at more stuff about the Lakers-Memphis matchup in particular. But how do you feel about this one? I know it's easy, and I am a prisoner of the moment. I'm saying, if you're able to get even money or better on Memphis, then take that opportunity, make that bet. But how do you feel about this matchup? What's your confidence level? What are you worried about? How general sense in elevator pitch, with this series up ahead?
I'm concerned about how confident I am in this series, because again, I said that this was one of the matchups. I think when we were going through the top 4 seeds, I think I said this was like 3 for me or something. It was definitely not my preferred matchup out of the top seeds, but that's more just because I felt really confident against the Nuggets and Sacramento with AD, and this one a little less so. But I still think Jaren Jackson Jr. he's going to be in some foul trouble issues.
Yeah, he already has 2 fouls heading into the first game. It's crazy.
Yeah, against Anthony Davis. And that is, that's a big chunk of Memphis's defense. Dillon Brooks, again, there's going to be a really annoying wing player that gets one over on LeBron and is able to, kind of quiet him and beat his team. But it hasn't really happened yet. Like those guys that are the overly physical Dillon Brooks, Lance Stevenson type, whatever, historically, LeBron eventually kind of figured those guys out and uses their aggression against them and is able to take advantage. And so I feel pretty good about that matchup. And, Ja is obviously a concern, but I think, I think the Lakers have a good chance against a banged up Grizzlies team that's going to be missing Steven Adams. That's going to be missing, some of their other front court depth.
Brandon Clark.
I think
Brandon Clark.
Yes, that's I was blanking on his name. Yes, Brandon Clark.
I was helping you.
Yeah, and so I think without those, I feel good about the Lakers' chances. I'm certainly not picking them to sweep or anything like that. I'm not that confident, but I do feel like this is a pretty beatable Memphis team for this group as currently constructed. Again, trying to remove myself from tonight and also taking into account tonight that they played about as bad as we've seen this
in
group
the last couple weeks too.
Yeah, they played as bad tonight as we've seen them play since the trade deadline, probably. And, they still managed to get a win in a must-win scenario. And so I think that, they should have a pretty decent shot.
Yeah,
Lakers in 5.
I like it. That's it. That's the clip. Just you out of nothing
God,
else.
No.
I legitimately have no idea how to feel about it. If you heading into tonight, like before tonight happened, and by the way, Keith was ready to hold this over my head that if the Lakers lost, he was going to tweet out a screenshot of me asking him before the game to come on the show. I think Thursday or Friday, to preview Grizzlies Lakers. so like shouts to Keith. And by the way,
I had somebody I had in my work calendar preview Lakers Grizzlies already set for tomorrow earlier today with our friend Parker Fleming of Grizzly Bear Blues. So yeah, I would have been in the same boat with you.
And so like I was pretty confident coming into tonight's game. And by the way, why wouldn't we be? Right? Like again,
this team just had a guy break his hand punching a wall, and that was somehow
a super important
the less
player.
destructive punch of their last game. Yeah,
right. So, like, of course, I was confident coming into this one that the Lakers were going to win it, and again, I do really want to give credit to Minnesota because they played their asses off.
Yeah,
like. Given the circumstances, and again, like I really hope that this doesn't just kind of get whittled down into just the referee talk. That would really be a bummer because I think it would complete.
Sorry.
It is. I'm not looking at Twitter. Fuck Twitter. Fuck you, Elon. But I do want to like really give credit to Minnesota because given the circumstances, they lose Jaden McDaniels, who is legitimately their third best player, maybe fourth, right? Ant and Cat, and then I think it's him or who, like Conley.
How far before we get to Rudy?
I don't know. Noah played tonight, so. but like, given the circumstances, I totally could have seen Minnesota just kind of rolling over. And yeah, like Cat does commit really stupid fouls and all that stuff. And it is really frustrating. It's something he's going to have to clean up over the course of his career. But also, he was freaking balling for most of this game. When Minnesota was up by like 10-ish points and the Lakers would make a bit of a little run here and there, it was Cat who would make either a three or some kind of a post-up move or a fadeaway, whatever.
Cat
he was
had
not
an elite
guardable.
Offensive game tonight, for sure.
Yeah. So, like, I do really want to credit Minnesota for the way that they played and the way that they competed in this one. And still, this was a team that the Lakers should have beat handily. Like, I don't want, like, giving all the credit to Minnesota for the way that they competed or whatever. This was a team that the Lakers should have, I think the final spread heading into this one was 8 points, right? And my thing, since they acquired D'Angelo Russell and the rest of those guys, has been good teams cover. The Lakers didn't, and they didn't cover against a team that was broken, literally broken. And I think that really that really concerns me. So
does that mean Avery's not getting donuts tomorrow?
So what's tomorrow? Tomorrow's Thursday?
Well, they didn't cover, so I assume you don't have money for it. I thought you on the Lakers or against the Lakers.
Let's see. No, I didn't put money on this one. I should have put money on the Lakers right when it opened at 6.5. That was, I think, the best bet in this one. But I would have bet that, but I just didn't get around to doing it. So that's my bet. But so sorry, Avery, no donuts today. But yeah, I would love to be confident at all going into this next game, but I just can't. I can't do it. I'm really concerned about LeBron's legs. I'm really concerned. The thing about free throws, and Harrison, you and I have talked about this for years, is it's not just making or missing the big ones. It's the reluctance to put pressure on the rim because you don't want to get fouled.
Yeah.
And I think we saw that from AD in this one. And that really concerns me from what he can do offensively. And And by the way, D'Angelo Russell, like this isn't even the first time he's been benched in a playoff game.
Yeah.
Minnesota did that last year, where he didn't play in their most important games, and he was abysmal in this one. So, yeah, like I would love to be more confident going into this Memphis one, and I apologize to everybody who were listening to this, like coming off of the high of an overtime play-in win. I apologize.
Anthony, anybody listening to this that's an hour and 5 minutes into this, like this therapy podcast, there's no one here that's like, I wish you were more confident in the Lakers, and I'm mad at you for not being. Like,
welcome to my mentions. People are already angry at me for even considering betting Memphis in this next series. So, look, guys, I have to buy donuts. Like, it's not my fault.
It's for your child. She doesn't care that it's dirty money.
I have a child. So yeah,
I do actually.
He doesn't need donuts. He looks like a donut. He looks like a glazed donut hole. But
Anthony's
does not
mad at Miles. He's like, no, that's Jen's son. That's not mine.
I'm telling you, I hope you meet him soon. I'm going back home, I think, in like August or September, and you need to meet this guy. You're gonna laugh at how fat this child is.
He probably outweighs me at this point. He's
pretty close. He definitely weighs more than Sasha. Like, definitely.
Throw my back out picking him up.
All right. We'll go ahead and call this thing here.
Should we announce our news?
Well, there's been a lot of news to announce, so I'll let you handle the news.
Yeah. Well, so I'm excited to announce that I, Harrison Fagan of Silver Screen Roll and SB Nation, am going to be a recurring guest on this very fine podcast. Anthony and I have, we've been able to work out sort of an agreement, and I'm going to be doing the show, probably about twice a month, probably every other week. It's looking like right now. As schedule depends, and that may be open for change down the line, or seeing what we can do. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited to officially be teammates with you again. It's been a long, what is it, like 2 months that we were enemies, and
in other words, this is what we're doing.
Run it back, run it back, run it back, run it back, run.
Right?
Yeah. No, we're running.
Should that
have
been the announcement? That probably should have been the announcement.
Yeah. No, we should have. If we were still doing individual pod names on the episode days, we definitely would have to call our show "Run It Back" and just dare FanDuel to sue us. I have been squatting on this IP for longer than they had it. We could have done it.
Yeah, you're right. All right. Well, that is going to do it here for this episode of the Lakers Lounge. Shouts to everybody who've been tuning in from start to finish of this thing. I know a lot of people want this on YouTube, and eventually that is the plan. First and foremost, though, we have to get the listens on the various podcast platforms up to a point where it is worth putting it onto YouTube. But that is eventually the plan here. We are growing this thing out. We're building the plane in midair. There's nothing more fun than building something like this in the middle of a playoff run.
You heard Anthony. So go take your parents' phones, take your kids' phones, download the show in extra time. Subscribe, set up that auto download. This is how you get YouTube if you want it.
Get your iTunes questions in the form of a 5-star review. All of that stuff that really helps this thing. We need to build this in order to be able to continue to literally build it out. Like, there's a lot of stuff that I have planned for this that I had planned at my former employer, but we need to be able to build this thing out. So, this has been a blast. Thank you very much, Harrison, for hopping on. That was Harrison, editorial manager of the communities at Team Communities.
NBA Communities at SBNet. NBA editorial manager.
There you go. That's his title there at SB Nation. So thank you again for tuning in. We are going to be previewing not just Memphis, but I have a really fun guest that I know you guys are really going to be going to enjoy me talking to, given my professional career and all of that stuff. I'm not giving that away for obvious reasons.
Yes, no, it's for their safety. You cannot give it away at this point.
Yeah. So until then, and until the next time I talk to everybody, thank you for tuning in. Go Lakers. I'm gonna try to save my. No, I still have a fucking lowdown to record. Good
Yeah,
Lord.
no, gotta put on the victory fedora. It's time.
Okay. All right. I'll give you that because of Schroeder. Schroeder earned you that. I want you to think.
I'm bringing it back for next show. It's here. Where all the bits are back.